So I'm Allie Green, and I'm based out of Pittsburgh, and I Equilibrium Pittsburgh Movement Studio, and then I also have my own like separate. It's just me, which is Soma Movement.
Mm,
And that's a collection of somatically embodied based classes, workshops, practices. The studio, we're more of like a general, we do Pilates. It's mostly Pilates now. We work with a lot of special issues. I have a few teachers that are certified through Mariska Breland through the Pilates
yes.
neurological conditions. So yeah, and this year I downsized my studio. I was very lucky to have a extra space, and my landlord said that's fine. And everyone kind of shifted that was in the building and took the next space and then the next space, so it worked out.
Okay.
And yeah, just a lot of shifts this year.
Mm,
But my work is somatically embodied, fusioned with, maybe you call it holistic fitness,
sure.
run, the whole spectrum.
Right. Can you say some more about that? I mean, like sometimes there's people on like who are watching this that are not even from the fitness space.
Yeah.
So like the whole somatic piece, like what exactly does that mean?
So somatics is really it's body bottom up, like body based.
Okay.
Or body is informing your mind. You're really following more of a sensory experience. It's very first person. Whereas even with, I think how Pilates is traditionally taught, and there's no right or wrong, it's just
Mhm.
a different perspective.
Yes.
It's very, it's more of it's more of a third person. Like, I'm going to tell you where to put your body, and here's how we do
Yes.
it. I want you to focus on this part of your body. Um,
Yes.
so somatics kind of goes bottom up instead of top down. And then
Okay.
embodiment part is, I kind of think of somatics almost more, I might get a lot of people saying, I disagree.
Yes.
But
Which is fine. We're allowed to disagree. Let's discuss.
somatic based practices, which are up
Yes.
working with, the buzzword, the autonomic nervous system and all of that.
Hmm.
And then underneath that, so I am a practitioner, and what's in my my study and my teaching is body mind centering, which is body mind centering, and I'm a 500-hour RYT with embodied yoga and somatics. My
Okay.
Clark created that, and she's like a senior teacher of BMC, and so that is studying the 10 of the body from an embryological and developmental perspective. So
Okay.
it kind of takes it like even more like cellular underneath just the nervous system, even though you are vicariously working with it. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So then, can we use an example of an exercise and how you would speak to that exercise differently from both perspectives? Like, can we do that? Like, if I was to say, like, I want you to do the 100 now,
Yeah.
is there an overlay where, like, from that perspective, it would sound different than the way I would teach it per se?
Yeah. So I would say like the 100. Let's just say we're like totally like advanced. We're doing the whole thing.
Yes.
A more like biomechanical perspective might be, all right, I want you to flex up, nod the chin,
Hmm.
flex up. Now really feel your abdominals, and draw the belly in, reach the legs long, engage your inner thighs, and we're going to pump the arms, feel the movement, shoulders are quiet, let's move the whole arm. That might be more of a
Your
typical
verbiage for that. Yes.
way that I might go about that is, okay, I want you to nod your chin, and I follow your back body as it and then comes away from the ground. Feel the space underneath you support you, so that the back body is actually creating the foundation for the front body to lift. So it's not just about abdominals. We're working with gravity and space, and literally that's cellular. And then the developmental perspective, very basic, is yield, push, reach, pull. That's what children do in their bodies to come to stand,
Hmm.
walking, and And so, you know, I would say there's a push underneath the body and there's a reach through the legs, but there's a pull back into center. And in the 100, one of the things that I see a lot of is this restriction in the shoulders. So,
Yes.
you know, you kind of get that. And that's why you have these people that end up doing
Bobbleheading their way through 100.
oh, I hate teaching the 100. No one gets it. And, you know, it's really hard. And it is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe have them put their head down. But there's not a flow. So I work with the body energetically. So I'm always looking for places, you know, tension, contraction, holding, and
Yes.
and getting that out of the way. Because if that's happening, then the spine is being held and our whole nervous system comes out of the spine. So it's like,
Yes.
so that's what we're going for. And if we can't find it, we back off. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So then it's not just, I can hear that on two levels. I can hear that as just, well, I'm just going to change my words and people will move differently.
Yep.
But there's a real sense of intention to where the movement's coming from.
Yes, and sensation. So instead
Sensation. Yes.
of telling someone where to put their body in space, which is necessary sometimes with beginners,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for me, there's this whole continuum of language.
Thanks, Caroline. Yes.
You know, it's like directive,
Yes.
you know, all the way to completely autonomous, you know, and that's
right.
or learning.
Right.
And not everyone can be self-autonomous for a really long time. We're not built that way. It's like
Right,
we get mind. So it's like, yeah, I can deal with sensation for about 5 minutes and then I'm going to lose my mind. Can you just tell me what to do? You know?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to ask. I mean, because like that sounds like that could be really dependent on the person in front of you, right? Because like I know we all have clients who just lay there and wait for the next instruction. And then we also have clients who are keen and want to really exploratory with their movement.
Yeah.
So this sounds like this may appeal to one body more than another in that way, or no?
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes people don't know what to do with it. We don't live in a very, you know, self-autonomous culture. We don't live in a culture that says, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Like, you know, there's a lot of marketing. There's people making billions of dollars off of making sure we don't want to just be ourselves.
Right. That's true too, yes.
So to me, it's just, and this comes from a personal experience. So when I was looking for something, like when I was teaching, I was just like, I'm lacking something. I need something more in my teaching toolbox, or I feel like I'm just going to burn out. And so and I had no idea really what I was looking for. It happened to fall into my lap. I live in Pittsburgh, and my teacher lived here for about 8 years, and she just recently moved back to North Carolina. And I heard that she was teaching this embody yoga. And I was like, well, I really would like to learn yoga as well. But I'm not interested in a lot of the stuff that's out there.
Yes.
Wasn't, you know, speaking to me. And so I went and took a class. And I'm someone that was like, love biomechanics. I mean, I knew the muscles, and I was like, you know,
Yes.
your anterior, you know, tibialis, you know, and
like
so,
name dropping the whole time, right? Yes.
So I go into this class, and she asks us, and I had this hip issue that was, my hip was just wound, and I think I was a professional ballet dancer, and I just had these hip problems, and I'd been trying and doing my stretches and, you know, the psoas and all this stuff. And I went into this class, and we laid on our side and we put our feet up against the wall, and she was kind of taking us through this, and my hip just went and released. And I was like, I had to check myself. I'm like, did I say that out loud? Because I was like, it can't be this easy.
Right. Yeah.
And yet it is. And then it's not. It depends, you know.
Right. Yes.
I mean, I have plenty of people that are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you know, just tell me where, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's a to ride that spectrum as a teacher, because
yes.
do a disservice if we don't move into that more autonomous area.
Yes.
Because then we're creating people that are dependent on us, and we're just part of the problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I view my teaching, and I think a lot of people do. I mean, it's what Joseph Pilates didn't create Pilates so that, it's all about coming into the Pilates studio for an hour and then you don't think about it. It was return to all about doing something that empowered you to be able to live your life better,
Yes.
and also
Better.
learn to do these things on your own.
Right.
We had open studios, from what I understand. They
Yes.
have lists and go in and,
Yeah, the semi-private.
yeah, and you just think like, what does that look like
Mm-hmm.
age?
Yes.
So, so I'm always looking to, as much as I can, bring that person to.
Yes. That would be a good. Did you watch my conversation with Emmett Younger?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'll send it to you after because he spoke to that from a studio in the UK where he does teach traditionally called a semi-private. Like when he says semi-private, I think like two people, three people in a class type thing.
Yeah.
But really, the phrase semi-private means an open gym type format where people have been taught one-on-one enough of the terminology, language, and the movement that they can move independently. Come in. What do you need today? Okay, you can work on that. You can start over here on the tower because Jim's coming in. He's going to be doing some ladder barrel work, and then you guys can move around the space. And I'll just stand here, and if you have any questions, I'll help you.
That's amazing. And
That's amazing. Yeah.
him to be able to stand, because I think we also have developed in our sort of teacher culture. Like, I'm not a good teacher. If I see something and I don't fix it right away, like, then I'm not a good teacher. And I don't feel like that's the truth. It's like, give someone enough time to kind of find it themselves, and
Yes.
need to be perfect. Like,
Right.
so that's really cool.
It's very cool. And he explained it in a way that like we spent a lot of time on that because I was like I had a million questions with this. Like, okay, how? Like, I mean, for the person who is watching this right now who has a studio or just trains in the studio and sees this picture of Joseph Plies back in the day with all the pictures of the exercise on the wall and just this bustling space, how do we get there? And there's so many hurdles to get over to get there, and it's on the client side and then understand the movements. It's for us interpersonally to understand our own makeup, right? Like Claire's put in there, self-directed workouts, yes. But then, yes, like what you said, that we feel that if we're not talking if we're not filling every dead space, that we're not doing a good job. If people don't have perfect Pilates and we're not getting them there, then there's a lot of things that I have to recognize that that's the pieces that I have to work out in myself. You know what I mean? Like, because I want to fill the air, I want to make them work. But then at the same time, our clients sometimes feel like they're not getting success if you're cueing them 500 cues per exercise, and
Yeah.
they don't actually get to own their practice, own their movement, right?
Yeah, and there's no space. I mean, your nervous system needs space. And so if we're constantly like, shoulders down and pull your abs in, and you're just pulling that person out. And
Yes.
this is a great like segue for industry. Like, we had a conversation briefly, I think, like during the Speed Network, which is
Yes.
amazing, people. So the next time we're network, sign up because it's so awesome. Talk about
Yes.
community. So industry versus community. So
Yes.
his studio. What is his name again?
Emmett.
Emmett. So Emmett is community. That's such an example of like creating a community where everyone feels like they belong, like they can walk in. They know what they're doing. That what their opinion of what they're doing is just as valued. They don't need to be looking over to the teacher and going, "Is this right?" Like,
Yes. Exactly.
you're higher than me.
Yeah.
And so, but our industry has created, all of these teaching programs that teach us to teach like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We didn't come up with, I mean, I remember moving away from kind of the way I was taught, and so really feeling uncomfortable and feeling like I was a sloppy teacher because like it was definitely a hard transition. And it was I have a few clients who they're like revved, so
Yes.
they are they were like, what are we doing? You know, like,
Right.
so I would give them a little bit more, but you know,
They
even
take longer to transition, right?
I let that be their transition. So I
Mhm.
had you recently joined the studio and had a funny conversation.
Hey, there's Emmett. Sorry to jump in. He
Oh,
just,
oh,
hi, we just,
yeah. I always pronounced it Amit.
it's,
Emmett. Okay. Yeah. No, I'll definitely.
yes. We just finished talking about semi-private, so if you're just jumping in right now. So anyway, sorry, finish your thought, please.
I'm about you. I'll have to check you out.
Yes.
Uh, so I had this client come in and we're doing a reformer class, and I was just noticing her pace because my clients that have been with me for a while, I've watched their nervous systems drop. I've watched their practice change. And
Yes.
um, and so she comes in and she's like, and I just said, you know, I'll make up a name, you know, Susie. If I had to pick, like, if you were a car, I said, you'd be a Ferrari. And she laughed and she said, I know, I go fast, don't I? And I
Yes.
said, that's okay. And I said, you know, I'd be a VW bus. And I started thinking, like, what car they would be. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
funny. And so,
Yes.
yeah, we can all be different cars. You don't, and that's why I don't cue like the snapping and the rhythm and the, you know,
Mhm.
sometimes if it's a like a brain exercise, like I want them to follow the rhythm, like there's a
Yes.
purpose for it.
Yeah.
But I let everyone all say we're going to do about 10.
Hmm.
And to some teachers, that's like nails on a chalkboard. What do you mean about 10?
Yes.
And I, of course, if it's like, you know, unilateral, I make sure that someone's not doing 70 and something.
Right. Yes.
Um, and then I just give space, and then if
Right.
something, I'll kind of throw something in, but I want them in, and you know, and I also guide them, like, you know, we'll have a little discussion at the beginning of class of what the theme is, you know,
Yes.
you know, your intestines being support for your legs to, you
Sure. Yeah.
know, whatever, but I want them to own it, and yeah, but it is, yeah, and that's challenging
Yes.
for us. It is like you
Absolutely.
see that person.
Yeah, I really feel it's centered on just the piece of how challenging this is for us. Like, I mean, we can read a book and just like read stuff off and make them do it, but it has to be part of our journey as well as we're moving together on this, right? There's two comments I wanted to throw in there. One was from Lori Coleman Brown when she was on, and she's been teaching for a very long time, has great experience. And one of the takeaways I got from her was she would get people, she said it this way. She goes like, I just go, let them move, 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 then I pounce. Move, 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 then I pounce, right? So she just lets them explore the movement. If the people are experienced enough to know what we're doing rolling like a ball, go. Okay, so now let's, you know what I mean? Like instead of like, tuck it, da, 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 like, you know what I mean? Like she'll let them go and then she'll pounce, give them a little adjustment. How does that feel? And go on. And one of the other lines that she used, which I thought was helpful for our audience, is that she would say right at the beginning of the session, if I'm quiet, just keep moving. That means you're doing it right. And I'll give you something else. Because I don't know if this has happened to you, but like sometimes you're telling someone to do something and then they're flowing with it and you're just enjoying the fact that they're getting it. And the second that you stop talking, they stop. Like, what's next, right? Like,
Or
you're like, no, keep going. Like you're doing well, right? So it's so funny that if we don't give people those cues right at the get-go, then they're programmed to stop until they get the next directive to go, instead of go until they get the next directive to make an adjustment, right? So I thought that was very helpful, and I've started to integrate that. And people, you'd be surprised how much people appreciate that because it doesn't become so performative. It becomes more their own work.
yeah, it's process oriented
Absolutely.
instead of goal, you know. So
Yes.
that's, and to me that's what movement's about. If not, you're just coming into a class because it's about change. And so if you're not allowing that space, then someone's just going to come in with all their patterns,
Mhm.
like go right back. They're just going to, you know,
Yes.
make those patterns even more grooved in,
Hmm.
not separate body, mind, spirit. So if we change something in our body, we are something in our mind. We're going to change something in our spirit.
Yes. So I have a Dear Allie question for you then. I just made that up on the spot. So what happens then, Dear Allie, when I have a client who comes from another instructor who has been taught the classical repertoire in a set order at 100 miles an hour, and they're coming into your space? Do you try and like snap them into your framework,
No,
or
to me,
let them go,
no.
or find that? How do you make that a transition?
Well, I even, I have different instructors in my studio,
Right.
and I say I'm not for everybody, like a little Allie, so, so, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. And that's why I have different teachers. And I know there's one teacher who, she is certified through a program with back pain, and so she approaches certain exercises in a certain way. And
Right.
I have this one client that points that out every single time. And I'm not sure how to take this, because she'll say, "We do this, like yours is so much easier." And I'm like, is that a thing or a bad? I don't know.
Right.
But I'll say, that's not mine, that's hers. And I'll just say, well, now you know 2 ways to do something. Isn't that beautiful? Which one do you want to do today? If you the other one and you know it, I'm fine with that. Again, it's about putting the choice to them. It's not about me. So
Right.
you really have to check your ego.
Yeah.
But I would also say to someone, if they said to me, I come from, Miss Lisa's super duper classical Pilates studio,
Right.
extraordinaire, I would say, and I knew that beforehand, I would say I teach really differently.
Mm-hmm.
If this isn't for you, I'm not offended. Like, I'm going to have that conversation.
Yes. Yes.
And again, it's not about me. It's not my story. It's about them. What do they need? What do they need at the moment? Maybe they don't need that right now. Maybe they'll come back in a month and say, I think I'm ready now. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But I don't, I mean, to me, like, and I have such respect for classical. Like, just because I do what I do and it's not classical, I'm not trained in classical. But I've learned a lot, especially, I think it's so important to, if you don't know where you came from, I don't know how you're going where you're going successfully. So I think that needs to be given a lot of respect.
Yes.
And unfortunately, because of I think of like industry creates the scarcity, which we
Yes.
all feel so much sometimes. There's not enough, someone was already doing it. And
Yes.
there's enough people for everyone. And our industry creates, and I think it's hierarchical. And again, if we were to be more community and circular, and everybody has value, equal value, whether you've been teaching for a week or whether you've been
Yes.
20 years, you have equal value of your input.
Yes.
Because it all goes in the pot.
Right.
And what's so sad to me is how we've gotten this classical contemporary, and I feel like it's happened because neither side wants to admit valuing, because there's this sense, and this, like, I'm talking like maybe it's subconscious or what, I don't know,
Yes.
but that there's this annihilation, that if I'm classical and I don't get up on that pedestal, on that soapbox,
Yes.
to be annihilated. And then you have the contemporary side going, you don't take us seriously,
Yes.
So I would love for us to become, and I feel like what you do does this. I feel like Jenna Spino's Brink, I feel like Momentum Fest, these smaller venues that are really more about community than making money, create more of that integration.
Yes.
And then maybe we could sit down at a table together a little bit longer without throwing food. And
Too funny.
have respect.
Yes. But you know, it's funny too. Like when you said the making, I wrote down the word money because like there are other ways to make money, and that whole abundance scarcity mindset is like sales 101, right? It's just like buy now, limited time offer. Like
Yep.
it makes you sense like there's a scarcity, so I need to act now. And then we transpose that onto our Pilates world. You can make good money in this industry. And I've talked with people who are extremely profitable in all that they do, and they don't come across as slimy salespeople. You know, and even using Brink as an example, like that's a good business model for a conference. It isn't just a warm fuzzy conference where she's doing it out of love of her heart. She's doing a great job and also making money
Integrity.
with integrity. Thank you. So there's a way to do that, and I don't think we need to hide away from one or the other, nor do we have to play into the world's suggestion of it being a scarcity thing. I'm good, therefore you're bad. No, we're both really good at this.
Right. Right. And what is our, and I've thought a lot about this because over the past year, just with all the things that have been happening in the Pilates, then again, it's like Pilates community. It's not, it's been in the industry. And the Pilates community, like I belong to a forum that is just really beautiful, because we just don't allow any of that, backstabbing. I remember
Yes.
my and she's from the place of embodiment. I remember telling her this conversation that had happened, and she said, "You guys speak to each other that way?" And I'm like, she said, "Wow," like,
Yes.
and that's starting to happen in the embodiment community. I mean, there's some slick stuff that's being sold online now.
Right. You sniff it out, eh?
Stories behind some of those people. It's like, whoa,
Mm,
just
yeah.
meeting people, but in general, like, I would love us to just behave a little bit better. you know,
Yes. There's an interesting dialogue. There's three words that I've been chewing on a little bit, and it'd be fun for us and also for our viewers to comment on this. Pilates community, Pilates industry, Pilates profession. The conversations I've had here, some people said this is not an industry, this is the profession, because we don't have those industry supports and we don't have governing bodies, we don't have X, whatever it is that defines an industry, they would say we're not there yet, we're a profession. And then there's people who would say it really isn't a community because there's so many different factions within this community. Well, and I disagree with that because like you could have a community that have different. It's like churches. I mean, there's all these churches. One's Catholic, one's Muslim, one's Baptist, one's Pentecostal, one's whatever, right? So I mean, they're all communities, so we can all be communities. So that's it. But then there's also profession, and then there's people who have dedicated their lives to bettering themselves and getting deeper into it. And there's those who have a full-time job and they're doing this 5 hours a week. And we're all in this profession to some degree as well.
mm-hmm.
Right? So there's the community, the profession, and the industry. So I haven't really unpacked that enough and given it that much thought. I just threw it up right now. What's your thoughts on that? And yes, in your comments, please, like PBE design says community and then is like a religion. Yeah.
I mean, I think there is an industry. So I just seeing it going to, these conferences, where to me, the minute there's branding, like heavy hardcore branding, to me, that's like industry. So I don't, maybe it's not as regulated or, but to me, or maybe we would call it commercial Pilates. I don't know. Like there is that level of it. And then there are people that are involved in that can also have a profession of
Yes.
Pilates. They're more than their slick online, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that we have smaller communities, and I think that's actually how you build communities. You have a small table with like 8,
Yes.
you get to talk and really get to know each other. And then you have another table, and then that table can get together, and, you know, so on and so forth. And
Yes.
that's what you've been doing. And again, I'm going to say like the same people, and there's other people as well. Misty is who's people to the table, and having conversations, and then and then you can kind of get those to build together and move out.
Yes.
And I think that's how you create change, because the
Absolutely.
tabled side, you know, this is really what we want our mission statement to be. Something that Misty has said to me and said, I think, you know, and I've always, and this I think is an interesting concept too. It's like, are we teaching fitness? Like, and what does that mean? What is fitness? You know, I mean, I guess we could go really deep, Martin.
Yeah.
You know, and she said, you know, is what we're doing a healing modality? Like,
right.
What, you know, I guess, you know, it goes back to like, what is Pilates? So when I look at Pilates, to me, it's Joseph Pilates. Joseph Pilates, it was healing. It was to make the body whole again, or to keep it whole.
Yes.
When I look at some of the stuff that's out there, that's got nothing to do with it. Everything to do with look good in a bra top, or you know, get rock hard abs, you know.
Right.
To me, that's industry. That's not a profession. That's not.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't want to look good in a bra top, so I hear you.
A man bra.
Man bra. So yeah, exactly. And I even like the word movement. Like as we go through these things, like the things that Misty's doing, what we're doing here on Core Conversations, like this becomes a movement, because then we don't necessarily have to wait for the next conference to be able to establish who is being elevated, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a movement. Like
it's a movement, and it's a movement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great stuff. The title of I put in there was Invitational Language, and I wanted to just unpack that more, because I get it kind of, but I don't know. Did we touch on that already, or can you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I would go again. It's like invitational, directive. So
Yes.
invitational is invite sensory awareness, your internal space, and directive is more external focus, and more execution. And then so it's really first person language. So I would say like, so maybe like the more, like, put your feet here, take your arms here. You should feel this here.
Yes.
Feel like breath cueing in Pilates is like, I don't cue a lot of breath anymore, unless I have a specific client that needs something specifically.
Right, or that's a theme for the day. That's the thing you're focusing on, or something along those lines.
Or if I have someone, like if I'm working with someone that's like postnatal and has a prolapse, we're going to exhale on exertion to draw it. You know? So yeah, I don't, if I feel like they need it, it's specific. Yeah. And so the invitational language would be more like, what would it feel like if you, so I'll notice someone's feet, and let's say I want them to be more, you know, in line, and one's out here, you know, instead of saying,
that would be me.
Well, I walk like a duck, but instead of saying, take your feet and line up your toes with your knees, I might say, what would it feel like if you know, took your feet and, you know, move them more parallel, or you know, look down and notice your feet.
Yes.
Like the visual first. They might need that.
Yes.
Our nervous system just records. It's not, you know, it doesn't, it's like if you do this 100 times, your nervous system isn't going to go, I don't think that's good. It'll go, oh, this is the way you want it.
Yes.
And then, you know, someone will say, you need to straighten your head. And I'll say, it is straight. What are you talking about?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Bring them here and they're like, that's weird. Yeah, it's very sensory itself. I invite you to, what do you notice? Let's explore. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, and that can be, a challenging place for people that have never been asked that. Um,
I Yeah, that's good. I've some other guests on here have spoken to that, and I use that example with one of my clients who on the tower behind me here was doing legs and springs work, and I said to them, okay, stop for a moment, take a look at your hands, and like one hand was here, one hand was here. I was like, did you notice that your hands were in a different spot? Okay, so level that off, and now what does that feel like, and then let them explore. But then it's just like stop and look because they weren't even aware, right? And then it's okay, now it's that sort of thing. So I've started to layer those kind of inquisitive cues in instead of just directive. Stop, level your hands off, okay, go.
mhm.
That you can do it in so many different ways so people can, once again, in my vernacular, own their workout in a different way.
Yeah, and to me that goes deep. That goes deeper, like literally into your system, into the cells to create change. Then
Yes.
that's why when I'll see teachers and they're beside themselves, and I was there, like I've had this client for 5 years, and I'm not sometimes it really is a client, I've had this client for 5 years, and I'm like, let's do footwork, and they're like, uh, and so it's and it's not always the case, but I think quite a lot it's that we come in as teachers and say, okay, everyone, lay down in the reformer, put your heels in line, and then we walk over immediately
Hmm.
and we put their feet there,
Yes.
and then they're like, okay, fine, like they kind of check out. um,
Yes.
so yeah, so I'll also pull things out. Like I did something recently. I was totally inspired. I did the fascial foot through the Fascia Hub a couple Saturdays ago, and Elizabeth Larkham, who's brilliant, did the whole thing with the foot and on this yoga block.
Yes.
And I was doing that, and then I was like, oh, she was working on the arch, and I was like,
Hmm.
that's the prehensile foot that we have on the reformer. So I started taking
Yes.
all the other foot positions that we have on the reformer, and we did this whole standing warm up with the yoga block and adding some movement spiral stuff in so that they could really see what they were doing with their feet standing. um,
Yes.
and then they could take it, instead of like laying down and being like, um,
Hmm.
so trying to take things also, yeah, pull them out, let's focus on this, but it's still movement, put it back in.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And Emma's comment here, it encourages them to own their work, take responsibility, and improve awareness. I find that moving a lot of my clients to online, I've also taken advantage of this time to improve their self-awareness. Like, because I mean, I think that our clients sometimes they shift. Okay, we're translating this to online. I'm just going to get a good hard workout online. It's like, well, let's take advantage of this time to move into something different, heighten your awareness, because that also develops their own, once again, owning their work, that sense of, okay, when I do this on my own, when I go down to start my 100, our earlier example, I go down to my 100, I can do that scan through my body. Where am I in space? What do I need to do? How does it, not just what is it supposed to look like, where is it supposed to feel? How, like all those different things, right? So improving their awareness is huge. So I love that.
That's good. That's building, self-efficacy, which is the ability to think that you can do it, and then it builds self-agency, which is actually your ability to do it. And
Yes.
these things are just so important, for a more whole human. You know,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and that translates outside of the studio into life. Love
Right.
get a client in and they're like, Allie, I was mulching the other day and I thought about you.
Yes. Honestly, that's
And I was like,
yes.
I'm gonna, really anchor my tail, and and I was like, yes, that's what it's about. Because that
Yes.
I do point that out to my students too. I'm like, this is why we're doing this. Like,
Hmm.
this is this. And I add a lot into my practices that really do mimic real life. I add a lot of variability. I do not work in parallel all the time. I
Right.
that sure that, the, the imaginary Pilates police would be, citation left and right. And I was really uncomfortable doing that at first, but
Yeah,
I was like, no, but I believe in this. And then seeing how that shifts and changes people was
love
kind
that.
of proof. Yeah.
Wasn't it, I don't know if you watched my conversation with Trent on Monday, but there was this beautiful line that he said, and it was just in passing. He was talking about, all that he learned and how his life experience and how he changed his name and how he felt strong in that name. So he didn't care that he called it McIntyre Pilates. And I was like, wait, stop for a second there. I felt strong in that. And I just had to just camp out on that word. I felt strong in that because we feel like we have to do things to please all the people all the time, or we have to do things that aren't going to ruffle any feathers all the time, or we feel that we have to appease people or all these different things. But when you feel strong in something from the inside out, and then you make no apologies for going in that way of passion, to see the success that he has right now, I was just like say that again, because I think we need to get to a place where we feel strong within ourselves with the decisions that we make, like, risking getting a citation from the Pilates police when you do something differently,
Yeah.
or choosing to call yourself Trent McIntyre Method Pilates, Reed Method Pilates, because we embrace certain things and we want to have expression of our passions in this work.
Mm.
And so when he said that, I was like, I don't want that to get lost in this conversation. The fact that we do need to feel strong in who we are, what we're most passionate about within this work. That is the expression, and that's what we bring to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love him. I just think he's brilliant, and he's a very authentic person.
Yeah.
I just always feel like he's been like, but you watch, he has this, he has that, he has different things. All of a sudden, he's focused on this. Yeah, he's quite. So I'm going to ask you. Now's my opportunity to ask you a question.
Sure.
So, what was it? Was it organic, or because you're, I mean, you've really created your own. I don't want to use the word brand. It's not that. It's a community. It's a movement. It's coming on and doing the core conversations and the podcast. So for example, I think there's probably a lot of people who'd be like, well, why would I do a podcast? Like, what do I have to say? And who's going to want to come and talk to me? And, what was that process for you? Like, where did you start? Like, I want to know your story.
Sure. Well, it's funny that you say that.
Bodies, and then how did it come to where it is now?
Well, I still sort of feel like that. Like, what do I have to say in a podcast? I know, I'll get everyone else to talk. Right? That's basically what I'm doing here. And I feel that because I'm not hiding behind everyone's stories, but because I'm amplifying other people's stories, that bolsters me and my confidence to say, I don't care what you think about my podcast. I'm doing this because this person has something amazing to say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy for me to latch onto your story and say, like, people need to know how awesome Allie Green is. So I don't care if you don't like my podcast, or you feel like I'm being cocky with this, or it's all about Martin. I know it's not, because I know it's about the Allie Greens out there. So that's allowed me to hide behind my passion, as opposed to bearing my soul out there for everybody and feeling like I'm going to be, subject to people's opinions of it and stuff like that. I was like, no, I'm consumed by my passion for getting other people's stories out.
Mm-hmm. And you're really good at it. It's what is the Graham Norton show? I don't know if you're familiar.
Yes.
And the celebrities come on and they're like someone, I think it was like, I don't know, Matt Damon said, this is the best time I've ever had on a talk show, because it's so relaxed. And I tell you, like, watching when, everyone you brought on, and I feel the same, you're so good at this. Like, it's
Thank you.
And yeah, it's a talent for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I recognize, and not to be cocky with it, I recognize as a talent, because we all have talents. Well, like, the things that you do, you got to feel strong in that. I am definitely strong in the fact that I enjoy hearing people's stories and just pulling, like, you're asking me the first question and we're at 59 minutes. Like, because I've just been pulling stories out of you. I love this.
Yeah.
It's not an energy drain by any means. So, but that's just it. Like I with a background in counseling, about a background in social work, I've always loved hearing people's stories and helping people move towards their goals. So when it comes down to the question of how do we give our gifts and talents expression, there was years where I was asking myself, how do I marry my passion for fitness with my passion for social work and connecting people, right? So when I left social work to do personal training, I was like, if this falls through, I can always fall back on my master's. That was 2002, right? So I'm still doing the fitness thing, but then over time, I recognize that who I am is going to come out regardless of what I'm doing. I could be a bricklayer and I'll still be listening to people's stories and trying to get other people jobs, and like whatever it is, it will have the expression because it's who I am. So I just feel like that's just it. Like I'm just being obedient to who I'm supposed to be and just feeling strong in that.
Yeah. Well, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I are a little similar. So my background, I have had like 9 lives. But I was, but they've all ended up involving movement. So, except retail, I was an assistant manager of a clothing store. But I learned how to fold sweaters incredibly well using the board. So if anyone needs to go over and do that, I'm really good at it.
Do you sell those folding boards on your website or put your logo on it?
Like fine motor, wrist strengthening for,
Right.
Oh my God. Yeah, because when I worked in retail, it was that year of like 1980, whatever, and it was I worked at the Limited for a limited time.
Yes.
Unbelievable, but I actually didn't enjoy folding sweaters.
Yes.
But they
not to hate on those sweater folders out there, just to be politically correct. We don't want to discriminate against sweater folders. Go on.
Yeah. Yeah, but I also, as a therapeutic staff support, so I back to school for my master's in developmental psychology, and then said I don't want to do it, and I just don't want to spend that kind of money. That's when I kind of moved into more of the like, can I make a living teaching movement, and and it's all for me. It's really coming full circle now. I'm finishing a small certification, but it's polyvagal theory,
Yes, amazing.
And I'm doing a neuroaffective touch, which has to do with the nervous system. And it's interesting how, so part of who I am and who I've always been is now informing how I teach my movement and my,
Finally, right?
Yeah. So, and I loved doing that work. I worked with children with autism and special needs. I worked for 8 months in a juvenile detention facility working with male juvenile sex offenders.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was asked to be on a team to work with this one boy who was always in solitary confinement because of his behavior. He actually didn't belong there. He really needed a psychiatric facility. So I had these boys, these 15 to 17-year-old boys, and I asked the counselors. I was like, "Can I do like some art-based, group stuff with them?" And it was
amazing.
And we did movement, we did writing, we did and it was one of the most heart-wrenching and amazing experiences of my life. Yeah.
Yes. And they inform who you are today.
Yeah. That
they really do.
It really taught me that when we think we know what someone's story is, I was curious, like, how does someone end up doing something like that? And then you find out what was done to them. And, so you just, so also with my teaching, I don't touch on that. I'm not a therapist. It doesn't belong in my studio, but I could definitely teach in a way that you're able to hold that space or recognize, what does a more traumatized person look like? What is language? How do they move? What are they, um, and also I feel like when we do more invitational language, that's very trauma informed. It's, again, I'm not walking, and I've had to get out of the habit. Being a dancer, I was so used to being manhandled, when
Mm-hmm.
I started teaching, I'd just walk right up to someone and be like, put your shoulder there, and I'm going to grab you here. And, I don't touch people anymore. If I do, and I'm going to put my hand here, and I'm very aware of how
Yes.
someone. I think that's a whole thing that our Pilates profession needs to really think about,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been in other people's classes and been grabbed and I just like
Yes. Well, yeah, and it's interesting that that's your experience with that, because like for me, coming from the personal training background, being a male as well, can I touch you? Is it okay? Da, da, da. Like, I mean, there's times when there's a time and place for it, but you don't impose yourself on someone.
right,
You don't invade. I
right,
think, and as Emma's about to ask, I think I just want to just preface that by saying
yeah,
there's a difference between invading someone's space and asking that permission. And as a male, I'm very cognizant of doing that, because even when you ask, someone might just say yes. So you need to
yeah,
be cognizant of that, right? So
yeah,
yes, it totally can be done in a kind of supportive way, right? So
yeah.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not totally hands off, but I also feel like approaching my teaching the way I do, I don't really need to be a lot of hands on. Um, and but yeah, when I do, I make sure I'm very aware of how I'm moving into that, or even aware if that person, they say yes, it's okay, do they really mean it?
Yes.
So it's yeah, I just think that's a topic all in its,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. We'll open with that next time. Um,
Today on Martin Reed.
yeah, exactly. Um, Thank you. I love the comments as well. I find that people, sorry, I'm reading Emma's comment here. I find that people, when they trust you, invite you into their space and they want to be supported through physical touch. Yes, exactly. They do. They do. And it's that just lends into the conversation we had. There's an exploratory process of allowing them to own their movement, know where they are in space, and then we're coming alongside them
Yeah.
with those things to get them to that place, as opposed to starting with fixing their feet before they even understand why you're fixing their feet and doing something. So yeah, there's a time and a place for it, and the conversation really centered around the intentionality of our work.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it's that invitational. Are you
Yes.
invited? And it's this. I'm going to be a guide. I'm not the expert. How could I be an expert of someone else's body? That's impossible. I don't live in it. I only look on the outside of it. So again, it's just that's why I think it's so important for people to learn how they can have more self agency.
Yes.
We can provide that in a Pilates studio. We can be very powerful, for people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Because they do come to us like we are the expert, like a heart surgeon, right? Like, I mean, I know my body, but I do have to trust that heart surgeon is more of an expert on the heart than I am, even though it's my heart that he's working on.
right, right. And then I would say with that is also, I'm an expert on my heart inside my body, but that surgeon is an expert on my heart as an organ. This is getting a little deep, but
Yeah,
that's
that's the difference, though.
that third person
Mhm.
versus first person. And how do I view my heart? Is it an organ that is removed, or is it within me and part of me? So yeah, that would be like a whole embodied awesome.
Yes.
Vanderwall. So I've done his course, and it's beautiful. It's the human in the embryo, and he talks a lot about that, and
Yes.
working with students in dissection, um,
Mhm.
and yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Good stuff. Thank you for your time today, Allie. I've really been looking forward to this chat, and it's
yeah. Thank you.
so edifying.
Yeah, yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you to everyone who is joining us in the comments section. As always, so rich. And please follow all these people. Yvette, Nicole, I see me, Body, True Pilates, SF, San Francisco PVE Design was here earlier. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us today. Allie, thank you so much. I will send you the replay of this later as well. And we'll just keep this conversation going.
Yeah. And I want another speed networking.
Yes, there is one. There's two coming. One that the next one that was supposed to be my next quarterly one is piggybacking on Momentum Fest. So the Friday night of Momentum Fest will be a speed networking event. So if you're registered, yeah. So are you speaking there too?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So Momentum Fest, we're doing a speed networking in that. So like I think it's tied into that somehow. But I'm doing them quarterly. So that's the next one coming up. So I'll put some more stuff out.
They're so fun.
They are super fun. They are super
thank
fun.
you so much.
Yes, thank you. Just reading the last comments here. Yes. Awesome. All right. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Bye, everybody.